As I coach business analysts around the globe, there are 5 common business analysis career questions I receive consistently from aspiring and existing BAs. And they are: 1. How do I move into a BA role with no BA experience? 2. What technology should I know as a BA? 3. What certifications should I pursue as a BA? 4. What is the next logical role after becoming a BA? And 5. How do I show my value when no one knows what I do? So I decided to answer these questions in a 5-part series of videos. So get ready to focus on each of these questions in detail. My name is Paula Bell, also known as the BA Martial Artist, as I leverage martial arts concepts to bring forth personal and professional results, and I am here to answer and discuss some strategies and tips for the 5 common BA questions I receive from aspiring and existing BAs in this 5-part series. But before I get started, if you want more tips and strategies on business analysis, career growth, and development, and or life coaching, make sure to click on the subscribe button on this video, as well as the bell to turn on notifications. Also, I would love to hear from you, so be sure to engage with me by leaving comments on this video or participating in the community link tab on my YouTube channel. Okay, now it's time to jump into part 1 of this 5-part series of the 5 common BA career questions answered. The first question I receive quite a bit, and one of the main reasons my clients reach out to me, is how do I move into a business analysis or BA role with no BA experience? Now, as a martial artist, I have learned you can accomplish anything you put your mind to, whether you have the experience or not. When I started studying the art, I had no clue what I was doing, and I started as a way to spend more time with my twins. But as I continued to move up consistently in the belt ranks, I began to gain the skills and capabilities needed to effectively protect myself, and I saw the difference it was making in my life holistically, and I wanted to continue on, even if my kids didn't. You see, it's about understanding the capabilities and skills you already have, and then identifying where there may be gaps or deficiencies that require some learning or refinement to achieve the goal you desire. So though you may not have been in a BA role, that doesn't mean you can't be a BA. And believe it or not, you are probably using business analysis skills every single day and may not realize it. So here are the 3 main keys I start with when coaching a client interested in the BA role. Number 1, you have to clearly understand the skills and competencies possessed by a BA. This is the foundation. Number 2, you have to identify the transferable skills and competencies you possess to help you move into a BA role, as well as identify any skill gaps. And number 3, you need to effectively market those skills to get notice. So let's go a little deeper into these 3 areas. Let's start with understanding the skills and competencies needed to effectively be a business analyst. The term business analysis is still used quite broadly and differently in the industry. However, here are 15 common skills and competencies you should have as a business analyst, and these will be explained deeper as you continue to watch the video. 1, the ability to solve problems. 2, the ability to analytically and critically think. 3, the ability to be detailed-oriented. 4, the ability to facilitate meetings. 5, strong communication skills, whether verbal or in writing. 6, the ability to conduct enterprise analysis. 7, the ability to plan and organize the business analysis approach. 8, the ability to elicit requirements. 9, the ability to gather, organize, prioritize, and document those requirements. 10, the ability to manage the business requirements. 11, the ability to perform solution validation. 12, the ability to manage and facilitate change management activities. 13, the ability to build and maintain relationships with your stakeholders. 14, the ability to manage and resolve conflict. And 15, the ability to influence and negotiate with your stakeholders. Now, at this point, I have not mentioned the different methodologies, tools, or techniques you can leverage to do all of this. That is because I want to focus on the different buckets of work you do as a BA to open you up to how many of these buckets you already do in your professional and personal life through things such as volunteer activity. For example, I am sure at some point you have had to manage conflict with someone you know, or you needed to prioritize tasks to get things done. So as you go through this video or read the transcript, think about when you have done these buckets of work, either in your personal or professional life, and write them down. And for any bucket you have not done, write that down as well and put a star next to it, as this could be a critical skill gap you will need to address. Now it's time to go deeper into these 15 areas I mentioned. Let's first start with enterprise analysis. This is one area of business analysis that tends to get skipped over. And it's not because the BA doesn't want to focus on it, but many times the BA doesn't have the time to when they are included in the project. However, this step is a critical step and can really help you as a BA navigate the organization to get the business analysis work completed. Understanding how the organization is structured to include the stakeholders, processes, customer journeys, systems, data, and more will arm you with the knowledge to successfully complete the business analysis work. It's also very important to understand the domain in which you are working. And when I say domain here, I mean the business areas such as finance, accounting, technology, human resources, and this can also relate to the industry such as healthcare. So to determine if you have ever done anything like this, think about times when you have started a position in a new company or department. Did you take time to understand how it was organized? And if you did, what approach did you take? And if you did not, what would you do today to gain that understanding? Now, moving on to planning the business analysis approach. This is another critical area to set you up for success to conduct business analysis work. Planning the BA approach is still about defining the approach you will take to perform and execute the BA work. This is an area where newer individuals to business analysis may struggle because the more experience you get conducting BA work, the better you will get at this. But to get you started, here are 6 common approaches or considerations when determining the BA approach. First thing is first, understand the problem that needs to be solved. The reason projects exist is to solve some type of organizational problem. If you do not clearly understand the problem to be solved, you run the risk of solving nothing at all. Second, understand the scope and timeline of the project. Now that you understand the problem, make sure you understand the boundaries of the problems to be solved. This helps to keep the project work focused. And yes, there are times the scope may change as you gain understanding through the project work, but there needs to be conditions applied to keep the team focused. And if changes are required, an understanding of why and a consensus on that reason for why needs to be documented. Third, understand who your stakeholders are. You can't do this work alone. At some point, you will have to talk to someone. Make sure you know not only who the stakeholders are, but their role in the project. Fourth, determine the methodology to be used if not already defined by your organization, like Agile, Waterfall, Iterative. This will help in determining the next step, which is the deliverables that will be delivered through the project. Fifth, determine the deliverables that will be produced. Now, the type of project can define your deliverables. So, for example, for a business process continuous improvement project, a common deliverable is business process maps. For a data migration project, some common deliverables are data maps, ERDs, system context diagrams, a glossary, or a data dictionary. Now, for technical projects, you may have a business process diagram or model to help understand the current state and pain points. Then you may develop a future state process map to depict what is desired as a future state to eliminate those pain points. Then a business requirements document, or a BRD. Yes, some organizations still leverage these to document the requirements. You may use use cases or user stories to document the functional requirements as well. A product backlog is some other mechanism as a way to prioritize those requirements. A formal approval process to gain consensus and approval on the requirements. A traceability matrix to ensure the requirements are being developed and tested throughout the project. Some technical specification docs to ensure the solution is meeting the business needs and features. Some test cases and test scripts to ensure the requirements are functional as expected. A change management process to track changes. And there are many other options and ways to execute, but I believe this gives you a great idea on the different type of deliverables that could be involved. Now, the 6th and final consideration is to determine the communication plan. It's important to set expectations on when you will communicate the status of your work, as well as an escalation process in case you encounter any roadblocks or challenges. This level sets for everyone when and for whom communication will happen. Now, I know that was a lot of information in a short time, so let's bring this full circle with an example. Consider you've been assigned to a process improvement project. A potential 10-step BA approach you could take for this project could be: 1. Document the current state through BPMN. 2. Analyze the current state to find areas of opportunities. 3. Document the future state by creating a future state BPMN process map. 4. Identify business needs and features and place them in the project charter or potentially another type of document or deliverable based on your organizational standards. 5. Elicit requirements through a series of requirement workshops that you would organize and facilitate. 6. Out of what you learned in those requirement workshops, you would gather and document the requirements in a business requirements document, or maybe a different deliverable like a use case or user story, to name a few. 7. You would validate the requirements through a requirements review session with all the necessary stakeholders. 8. You would obtain formal approval through your documented approval process. 9. You would have a plan of how to manage the requirements elicited and gathered. And 10, you would create a traceability matrix to ensure the requirements are being developed and meet the needs of the business. Now, hearing all of that, think about a time when you had to lead a project. Do you recall doing any of the things I just discussed? If so, you are doing BA work. And if not, then you have identified some skill gaps, and you can definitely close those skill gaps by the right education and training. Now that you have an idea of how to approach and plan the BA work, let's move on to executing the plan in a little more detail. First up, eliciting the requirements. You need to determine how you will elicit the requirements from your stakeholders. Elicitation is the ability to draw out or draw forth requirements from your stakeholders or subject matter experts, also known as SMEs. This requires the ability to facilitate conversations by asking questions, but more importantly, the right questions. 3 common techniques to elicit requirements are requirement workshops, as mentioned previously, where you will schedule a meeting, invite all the necessary stakeholders needed, and have a very focused meeting with an agenda and desired outcomes. Another technique is leveraging one-on-one interviews, where you will schedule an individual meeting with a stakeholder to understand their business needs and requirements. And a final technique are focus groups, where you invite a smaller set of stakeholders to focus on a particular problem or process, as an example, for a specific department or team. And typically these stakeholders are the department business heads, and then you have deeper conversations with the subject matter experts with the end goal to understand their business needs and requirements as well. Some additional techniques you can leverage to elicit requirements are brainstorming, user stories, process mapping, surveys, just to name a few. But the key is knowing your audience and organizational needs to help determine the best approach. I would also like to mention that for each of these techniques, you should create an agenda that sets ground rules for the meeting, outlines the purpose of the meeting, the desired outcomes, required attendees, length of the meeting, what topics will be discussed, as well as sections to outline action items, parking lot items, and decisions made during the meeting. Now, once you have elicited requirements, you need to gather, organize, and prioritize them, and then document them in a way that will add value to the organization. If you are anything like me, you will probably have notes all over the place from all the different meetings. So you want to take time to gather up those requirements elicited and organize them in a way that will provide value to the audience consuming them. Now, when I say organize them, you can put them in categories of functional, non-functional, or transitional requirements as some examples. Now, once you have figured out the organization, it's time to document the requirements. Now, there are many different ways to document requirements, so don't let that overwhelm you. My rule of thumb is to use a communication vehicle that will add value and not just document to document. So some examples of deliverables are business requirements documents, BRD, use cases, and/or user stories, to name a few. I do want to take a moment and discuss how to write good requirements. Requirements should be clear, complete, consistent, feasible, modifiable, traceable, and testable. So let's go a little deeper on what I mean by these characteristics. To be a clear requirement, it should not be ambiguous or leave anything open for interpretation. To be a complete requirement, it should state all that is needed effectively and holistically. To be a consistent requirement, it should not contradict any other requirements. To be a feasible requirement, the requirement should be achievable and realistic. To be a modifiable requirement, the requirement has the flexibility to change based on the environment and needs of the organization. To be a testable requirement, the requirement should be certified, meaning verified and validated. To be a traceable requirement, it should effectively trace to any software or test document to track that the requirement has been met. Now, once you have documented the requirements, you want to prioritize them. You want to make sure your criteria for prioritizing requirements are agreed upon by all stakeholders. Many default to high, medium, and low, but I highly recommend you add more context to what constitutes a high, medium, and low rating. It's too easy to give all requirements a high, especially when all the different stakeholders may feel that their requirement is the most important. And as I mentioned before, the key to documentation is to know your audience and make sure the documentation you create adds value. If you create documentation that no one will read or use, why are you creating it? Requirement documents do not have to be 500 pages long to be effective. Only create documentation that adds value and organize it logically so it's easy to follow. It's more about the value than the quantity of documentation. Moving along, once you have documented the requirements, it's wise to verify them with your stakeholders and obtain consensus that the requirements are accurate. I said consensus, not 100% agreement, because you may not always get 100% agreement. Once the requirements have been validated, it's time to formally approve them. And once approved, your requirements are baselined. If anything changes, it will go through the formal change management process. Now that the requirements are baselined, it's important to have a process in place to trace the requirements. Requirement traceability is a process of tracing the requirements to the other documents created to ensure the requirements are being met. So for example, you will want to trace the requirement documents to the software deliverables or trace them back to the test cases to ensure that the baseline requirements are being addressed. Let's move on to the change management process that I mentioned before. There's always the chance of a change in direction or needs depending on the industry, domain, or environment in which you work. You can facilitate these changes through a defined change management process, which is to identify and document the change, identify the reason for the change, identify the impacts of the change, and make recommendations on how to move forward with that particular change. Now, this could be done through a product backlog when leveraging the Agile methodology, or a defined change management document for non-Agile methodologies. The change management process helps to keep the integrity of the project management process to ensure effective tracking of changes due to decisions made. And let's move on to the last functional skill I would like to highlight, which is solution validation. As a business analyst, you want to make sure the solution created is meeting the business's needs. Therefore, you want to validate shortly after the solution is implemented that it is working as intended. And then you want to check in maybe every 30, 60, and 90 days, or based on some sort of frequency, that the solution is stable and performing as intended. Now, during implementation, the BA is typically engaged and may wear multiple hats, whether right, wrong, or indifferent. As a BA, you may find yourself as a tester or conducting QA activities. But you should definitely be involved in the software design conversations to ensure the design is meeting the requirements you documented. Now that we have discussed many of the more technical skills, let's discuss some of the soft skills, which I consider the critical skills of business analysis. Now, I want to be clear, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the common soft skills you will want to consistently execute effectively. The first soft skill I want to discuss is leadership. Now, leadership doesn't always equate to management. We all lead in some way in our lives, and as a BA, you are leading others all the time. You are leading individuals from requirements planning, to requirements discovery, to requirements implementation, to solve problems. The second skill is strong communication. As a business analyst, you must have strong verbal and written communication skills. You have to be organized and detail-oriented to articulate the requirements verbally and in writing so that all stakeholders are clear on the requirements. This third skill is influence. As a BA, you are constantly influencing stakeholders to either make decisions so the project can move forward or to gain consensus on certain decisions when you need to influence someone or affect change in an indirect or usually important way. The fourth skill is negotiation. As a BA, there's negotiation that occurs quite often. Again, you are facilitating many conversations where you have to gain consensus to move the project forward, or gain consensus on decisions, or secure stakeholder buy-in. There are times where you have to negotiate with stakeholders to find a way through a challenge or an obstacle. The fifth skill is relationship building. Building relationships are critical in business analysis work. You cannot do business analysis in a silo, or at least when I've watched BAs try, they weren't very successful. You have to talk to someone at some point. And yes, even if you are introverted, you do need to engage with individuals to get your work done. The sixth skills are collaboration and teamwork. As a business analyst, you will need to collaborate and work with other teams. And the difference between collaboration and teamwork is that with collaboration, everyone is working toward the same common goal, while with teamwork, you are working on a team but could be focused on different goals, or a subset of the team is focused on a specific goal. As a BA, you will need to effectively work in both environments. The seventh skill is conflict resolution. On any project, there's a very good chance there will be conflict. You are working on a project team where you have many different personalities, thoughts, and other layers of diversity. As a business analyst, you have to be comfortable navigating through conflict, not avoid it. So navigating these crucial conversations are critical to your success as a BA. So there's your crash course on what are some of the main activities you will encounter as a BA, some technical skills you should possess, and some soft skills that are consistently used in business analysis. My question to you is, have you done or executed any of what I just discussed? If so, then you have some or all of the common business analysis skills and competencies, which demonstrates you are well equipped to pursue a business analysis career, even though you have not been formally trained or held the formal title. You have transferable skills that can help you move into a BA role. Now let's move to part 2 of the first common question, which is, how do I identify the transferable skills and competencies I have to move into a BA role and identify any skill gaps? Now, the activities discussed in part 1 of this question are the fundamental activities and soft skills BA should possess. If you are missing any of them, then take some time to obtain those skills. Also, depending on the industry or domain you work in, you may have other skills that you need to possess as far as business acumen or technical knowledge in order to perform those duties. Now, when you are pursuing a BA position, you must take time to get really clear on what type of business analysis work you want to do, the type of domains you are interested in, and where do you want to go in your career. This will help keep you focused and not overwhelmed. Start to research job postings that relate to jobs of interest of you. Once you find them, take time to dissect them to understand what is being asked for that particular position. You will start to identify patterns of skills, competencies, business domain knowledge, and more. You will then need to identify your scenarios from your past positions that meet those roles and responsibilities. You will also find where you have gaps, and you will need to determine if those gaps are critical flaws. Now, as stated before, you probably have business analysis skills already and may not have realized it. So the first step is to own the skills and competencies you possess. Don't just focus on the techniques and tools you leverage to do the business analysis work, but also think about those soft skills like verbal and written communication, building relationships, influence, negotiation, collaboration, and teamwork, to name a few. You may feel these are just buzzwords or cliche, but I have found that 80% of the work a BA does is around these soft skills. Now let's move on to the final part, which is part 3, how to market yourself to effectively get noticed. There are 4 areas you can immediately start working on to effectively market yourself now. The first area is your resume. Your resume is a great starting point. I recommend you look at the different skills and competencies you possess and add them to the skills section of your resume and throughout your resume so application tracking systems or ATSs can capture that information. In addition, look at the experience section of your resume and update the bullet points to demonstrate the business analysis work, skills, and competencies you bring to the table. When applying for BA positions, ensure those items are at the top of each of the applicable positions and your resume is speaking to the responsibilities and desires in the job position. Managers and recruiters are quickly scanning your resume, so you want that information to stand out. The second area is LinkedIn. Once you have completed your resume, you can leverage some of that information to create or update a LinkedIn profile. You want to make sure you are really emphasizing your business analysis skills if you are desiring to pursue a BA position, which means your headline, summary, work experience, certification, training, and recommendations sections should reflect business analysis. You can also reach out to your network to make them aware that you are open for employment. The third area is networking events such as conferences and professional events. These are great opportunities to market yourself. Make sure you have your 30-second elevator pitch so people start to know your name, your personal brand, your value proposition, and your career goals. This is a great way to become more visible and memorable when opportunities open. You may be surprised who may reach out to you for that next opportunity. And the fourth and final area is volunteering. This is one area you can start to put your BA skills to work now. While you wait for that next opportunity, offer up your BA skills through volunteer organizations. If you volunteer for an organization currently, reach out to see if there are any projects you can work on to continue to strengthen your BA skills. These are then examples of work you can now add to your resume and LinkedIn profile and talk about in your interview and networking events. Well, we have come to the end. This completes part 1 of 5 common BA career questions answered. I am hopeful that you have more hope in pursuing a business analysis career based on what you uncovered in the form of your skills, your competencies, and the current work you have conducted in your career. Now go forth with your BA Ninja skills and work on pursuing your BA goals. And also stay tuned for part 2 of the 5 common BA career questions answered, where I will focus on the next common question: what technologies should I know as a BA? Until next time, the BA Martial Artist is signing off.